In today's video, I will be taking a look at my final 2022 governor's predictions just 2 days away from the midterm elections. So I'm going to get right into today's video. Now I'm going to start off with the safe states on both parties, which are already filled onto your screen here. Now I'm going to go to the likely states. Now just in case you don't know what the margins are, they are linked down in the description. But regardless, let's get right into today's likely states. Let's start off with basically filling the Democratic likely states, as they are currently down by 8 seats. The first Democratic likely state is the state of Colorado, which is definitely expected to go to the Democratic Party. In fact, Jared Polis has about a 99% chance of winning, according to FiveThirtyEight, giving him a 16% advantage. Now, I don't believe in that number, but still, Jared Polis is very much favored to win Colorado. The next state in the likely Democratic column is the state of New York. The Democrat there is not necessarily doing super well, although it does say Kathy Hochul is leading by 12 points and has a 97% chance of winning. Looking at some of the numbers here, it's just not the most promising, especially because Colorado is rated 4 points higher for the Democrats than the state of New York, which should tell you something about this race. The next state in the likely Democratic column is Rhode Island. Obviously, this is a likely state for the Democratic Party, and Connecticut. Both of those races are very much obviously Democrats are going to win them, but I don't think the margins will be that great. And that will conclude for the Democrats' likely seats. Now for the Republicans' likely seats, Texas, first of all, a very obvious likely seat for the Republican Party. I think that Greg Abbott is going to win by about 10 to 12 points, so that will be my projected margin in the state of Texas. Florida, you should see Ron DeSantis win by around 10 points. I think the margin he will actually run behind Marco Rubio, as Rubio was able to win by 7 in 2016. DeSantis only won by 0.3% in 2018, so Florida should be in the likely Republican column, running around the same as Marco Rubio. Now going to Georgia here, Stacey Abrams really does not have a chance. This will be a likely Republican seat. Even FiveThirtyEight, a Democratic-leaning website, has Brian Kemp up by 7 percentage points, which is really significant, given that Georgia has been trending Democratic in the past couple of years. It's really just the last decade trend. The next two likely Republican states are the final two, the states of Iowa and Ohio, and the state of Alaska, of course. Iowa, Ohio, both of those states are going to go to the Republican Party. I don't think the margins will be that great. They will be around 8%. DeWine is not necessarily the most popular incumbent because he was not able to get a majority in his Republican primary in the state of Ohio. And similarly, Iowa, Kim Reynolds is decently popular, but I don't think she's going to win by more than 15 points. Now, going to the likely lean states for the Democrats and Republicans, I would just go around the United States. Starting with Oregon, I think Republicans will win the state by a tilt margin. Oregon, though, went to the incumbent Pat Brown by about 7 points in 2018. I don't think that will be the case this election. There's an independent splitting around 20% of the vote in the state of Oregon. Now, according to FiveThirtyEight, Tina Kotick, the Democrat, is still expected to win, but as you can see, the Johnson, the third-party candidate, is expected to win around 15% of the vote, which will be very devastating for the Democrats, as they are taking away basically all the progressive vote from the Democratic Party. Thus, the Democrats are not going to do that well. In fact, in the state of Oregon, Democrats, though there was always going to be an independent, the independent consistently, although took a lot of the vote from the Democrats were consistently leading up until recently, in which the independent is doing better and better in polling, and thus Democrats' chances have really decreased. You can see that previously the independent was actually garnering about 18% of the vote, according to the forecast. And that's why the Republicans were actually taking the lead at one point in time. Now FiveThirtyEight still has the Democrats winning, but again, this is a really close race. And I do expect the Republicans to pull it off in the end. Now for the state of Nevada, even FiveThirtyEight has this race in the tilt Republican column. Now put it in the lean Republican column. I don't think that Steve Sisolak, though a okay incumbent. Okay is not enough for 2022 as a Democratic incumbent from a state that Biden barely won. He needs to basically have a higher approval rating than he currently has. Now for the state of Arizona, Carrie Lake, I don't think, though not necessarily the best candidate, definitely isn't the worst. And I think that her opponent really is just trash. Katie Hobbs is not the best candidate. Arizona really at this point is not winnable for the Democrats. Democrats were consistently leading according to FiveThirtyEight, at one point having a 61% chance of victory. Now, however, Republicans have a 63% chance of victory, so this is not good for the Democratic Party. The state of New Mexico, however, I still have this race as a tilt seat for the Democratic Party. The reason being that although New Mexico's incumbent, Lujan Grisham, is not the most popular incumbent, she's probably going to win just because how deep blue the state of New Mexico really is. She's not that pro-oil, which will hurt her in that state, definitely, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Looking at some of the polling here, you can see that Grisham is still leading in practically all the polls, though the polls have been tightening. That is a good sign for the Republicans, but I just don't think that still a 8-point lead, even though polling is really not trustworthy. I think that 8-point lead for a Democrat is still enough for them to win a election. Going to the state of Kansas here, I will put this in the lean Republican column, not the likely Republican column, given that Laura Kelly has a really high approval rating. In fact, on FiveThirtyEight, she still has a 2 in 3 chance of winning, which I really cannot really side with that. But also, in the end, I think that Laura Kelly will nearly lose this race. But at one point, I thought that she was going to lose by about 10 points. Now I think she'll lose by about 4. So there's definitely a change of mind there, but I still think that the Republicans are heavily favored in the state of Kansas. Now I'm going to go to the next state, the state of Minnesota. Minnesota should go to the Democrats by a lean margin. The incumbent governor there is Tim Walz, who is not necessarily the best candidate, but not necessarily the worst either. Minnesota being a state that is always competitive, but it still always votes for Democrats almost consistently. Democrats have been winning this state in the presidential level for the longest, as Roger Mondale did win the state, though he carried nothing more than Washington, D.C. He only carried this state and Washington, D.C., and the state has voted for Democrats ever since, though the margins were really tight in some of those presidential elections. I still think the Democrats are favored in the state of Minnesota. However, for the state of Wisconsin here, this is a state that Republicans that I definitely think are favored to win by quite a significant margin. Tony Evers still has a lead in like FiveThirtyEight's model, but I don't think that's the case. Even polls have Michaels up by about 1 to 2%. Even polls like Data for Progress has the Republicans up, not necessarily the best thing for the Republican Party. The next state is Michigan. Michigan, I do have this race as a tilt seat from the Democratic Party. I think that the Democrats will narrowly win this race. I don't think the voters are the most satisfied about their incumbent governor, but ultimately I don't think it's going to matter. The state of Michigan doesn't have the best Republican candidate, and I think that's going to hurt them to win this seat. Now for the state of Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro has a 97 out of 100 chance at winning this seat according to FiveThirtyEight. Again, it's not necessarily the best website, but still having a 97% chance of victory is a very good thing for the Democratic Party, and I do think that Josh Shapiro is going to win. He's not going to win by 13, definitely not, but he should be able to win. And I think he might be able to carry Josh, in the state of Pennsylvania. The Senate race now is heavily tilting towards the Republicans, but this governor's race is heavily tilting towards the Democratic Party, which is quite interesting to see in this election. Will the Senate and ultimately drain the Democrats from the governor's race, or will Josh Shapiro be able to pull it out and potentially carry John Fetterman to the finish line? We'll have to see about that on election day. Now for the state of Maine, I do have this race as a tilt seat for the Democratic Party, as although Paul LePage is a pretty good candidate, I don't think he has enough, I think he's going to fall just short by about 1 to 2%. Polling consistently has Mills up by quite a large margin. Many of the polls have her up by double digits. I think that it's gonna be somewhere around the critical insights and Pan-Atlantic research margin, if not lower. But in the end, Republicans are probably not gonna win the state of Maine, as they had about a 25% chance in June the 3rd. Now they have only about a 1 in 8 chance. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.